Hi, and thank you so much for joining me for a rather juicy book bit. Now, if you follow the books on this channel, you'll know that the last book we enjoyed reviewing together was The Little Princesses by Marion Crawford. Now, one of the characters that stood out, mainly due to the great kindness that this character showed Marion Crawford, was Queen Mary. Now, it was obvious that Crawford looked on Queen Mary with great affection and admiration, and she made the reader fall a little in love with her too. Now, if you watch the series Downton Abbey, quite a different picture was painted about Queen Mary. Now, I know that was a fictional series, but it was drawn from stories and facts known at the time. It was stated that some small items actually disappeared from Downton Abbey when the royal couple visited. Now, I was fascinated to read a wonderful piece about that by Lucia Stein and Rebecca Armitage. It actually appeared on the ABC website here in Oz. I'll link it for you down below. But they tell the story of the young Queen Mary, the daughter of two spendthrifts, penniless aristocrats. Her mother was actually Princess Mary Adelaide of Cambridge, and she was the grandchild of a king, and her father was Francis, Duke of Teck, a German nobleman. Now, the young Mary was very fortunate to be the second cousin to Queen Victoria, because that very much turned her fortunes around, as she was actually matched up with one of Queen Victoria's grandsons. I won't say a favourite grandson because he very much wasn't, Prince Albert Victor. Now, this is the same guy that was once rumoured to be Jack the Ripper. It must be noted that that theory has been largely debunked. There's not many historians or criminologists that take that very seriously today, and there's been many key points that have helped in that debunking. For one, alibis and historical records, including the court circular, Queen Victoria's journals, and newspaper reports from the time, actually did provide some quite handy alibis for Prince Albert Victor, otherwise known as Eddie. I'll give you a few examples of these alibis. On August the 31st, 1888, Mary Ann Nichols was murdered. Sorry, Mary Ann. But he was actually staying with Viscount Down in Yorkshire at the time. On September the 8th, 1888, Annie Chapman's murder. He was at the Calvary Barracks, apparently, in York. And then on another one, on September the 30th, 1888, he was actually having lunch with Queen Victoria, and this was noted in her journal when Elizabeth Stride and Catherine Eddowes were actually murdered. It does make you wonder, do you think they were just providing him with alibis? Now, the theory about this actually originated in the 1960s with Philip Julian's 1962 biography of King Edward VII, but it did gain traction with an article that was written by Dr. Thomas Stowell in The Criminologist. And I've got more detail I can share with you about this from this wonderful book, Buckingham Babylon, as in Buckingham Palace, Babylon. Now, this is just such a great book. It is such a resource. It was actually came out in 1993. And the reason I got onto it is it's quoted in so many royal biographies. It's astounding. And it appears as a source and in the footnotes of so many royal biographies. So I just had to track it down and get it for myself. And this book does not disappoint. I'm going to read you just a little bit about that specific section. In the years following his death, numerous legends about Prince Albert Victor have circulated, the most sensational being that he was Jack the Ripper. I've got to insert here that since it has been debunked, but it's fascinating to hear why they thought it was him in the first place. Beginning in the summer of 1888, a series of gruesome murders of prostitutes in the Whitechapel district absolutely mesmerised London. Now, this is about the article that Dr. Thomas Stowell actually published in The Criminologist. Okay, he claimed that the Ripper, as you know, was Prince Albert Victor. Now, he based this on research of the papers of Dr. William Gull, one of Queen Victoria's physicians. He didn't name the prince in the article except as S, but it was clear that all his references were to him. Now, shortly after the publication of this article, Stowell died, which seems to be the fate of many of those who actually speak up and speak out against powerful people. And his family actually destroyed all his notes. But according to his theory, Prince Albert Victor had contracted syphilis in the West Indies during a voyage, and by 1889 was in the terminal phase of this disease. Gull's notes recorded by Stoll say that his son had syphilis. According to Stow, the Ripper murders were committed by the prince while in the grip of madness induced by the disease. The prince does have a strong resemblance to one of the descriptions given by contemporary witnesses and a striking resemblance to one of the contemporary Ripper suspects. The murders also coincide with the prince's periods in England, but there's no hard evidence of any kind to link him with the crimes. Of course there isn't. He has a cast iron alibi for at least 3 of the murders, which are the ones that I read you out. And that was where his whereabouts were known, and he was determined to be very far from London. So that's rather convenient, isn't it? But of course, this is all a backdrop to Queen Victoria matchmaking this awful person with who was to become Queen Mary. Now, regardless of the Ripper theories, it doesn't sound like much of a match, much of a catch for Mary, does it? As he was described at the time as very perverted and not suitable for a royal position. I think Mary had a very lucky escape because soon after their engagement, he actually died from viral pneumonia and probably syphilis. But in the course of mourning her fiancé, she was encouraged to develop feelings for Prince George, his younger brother, and he was instructed to propose. So it was very definitely an arranged marriage, but by all accounts, quite a happy marriage. And I've actually got a picture, a beautiful image that appeared in this article that I can share with you now. So George and Mary were married throughout the year, and throughout her married life, she really found her true calling as a royal archivist, and she collected everything. Some even say that you could suggest that she was really a hoarder. It is interesting that in The Little Princesses, Coffee tells us about this letter that Princess Elizabeth actually receives from her grandmother, Queen Mary. And it was around the time when Princess Elizabeth had just had the announcement that she was expecting the then Prince Charles, or who was to become the then Prince Charles. And so Queen Mary sent her a letter and said to her, please keep all the cards of congratulations, Lilibet, that you've received after your announcement, because she wanted them for her scrapbook. But Queen Mary's methods of acquiring things did sometimes raise eyebrows, and here is a quote for you. If she saw something that she thought should be placed in a royal residence, she requested a permanent loan of the piece. And it was stories came out that aristocrats, if they knew that the royals were going to visit, would put all the really good furniture up in the attic, because if she liked a chair, for example, that she was sitting in, she would request it, a permanent loan of it, and they would not only have to give over just one chair, they would have to go give over about a dozen chairs, the full set. So anything they were particularly attached to used to disappear up into the attic until after the royals had left. So it wasn't so much that she really stole things, but she pressured the owners to give up things. And an amusing quote describes her as an upmarket kleptomaniac. And hence there are lingering questions over the treasure trove of jewels and treasures that she amassed in her lifetime as a royal. And at the time of her death in 1953, it was one of the largest surviving collections in the world. Now, it's interesting that many of these royal items had been actually sold or given away by her predecessors, and they were returned to the House of Windsor due to her great efforts. So I think that deserves some credit, don't you? So isn't it a fascinating and interesting story? And it really came alive for me because we had read The Little Princesses by Marion Crawford. Because like I said, Queen Mary was painted as such a sympathetic, such an interesting and lovely character. I hope you enjoyed this little juicy book bit, and I'll be back with more next week. Bye.